and Ron gave him a chance, and it looks like there's a renaissance.
We're thrilled to welcome Kraken TV voice John Forslund. The Kraken have a new head coach, Dan Bylsma, promoted from the Kraken's minor league affiliate in Coachella Valley, where he took the Firebirds to back-to-back Calder Cups. He's a Stanley Cup winner as well, by the way, as coach of the Penguins in 2009. What do you think Bylsma and the staff he's put together, how will that impact the on-ice product?
Automatically, it's going to give them a little bit more of a bounce, a jump, automatically, because I just think the approach, the message will be different. I want to say something about Dave. I think Dave did a hell of a job. I really do. I think he did a great job with what he had. I think the first season was very, very difficult, navigating COVID still, putting a group of people together that couldn't really get together much off the ice because of the COVID restrictions. I think that year was kind of not anywhere close to what I expected. And then everybody kind of wrote the Kraken off as this horrible expansion roster. Mistakes were made and wasn't going to be that good. Then year number 2, look what happened. And then they're chasing their own tail in year number 3, because probably when every single player has a career season, it's hard to get there again. And so that was probably unrealistic to think they were automatically in the playoff mix in the 3rd year. But what Dave did, Glenn, is lay down a foundation of how he wants the team to play, how he wants a team to work. So all those guys understand that. Now there's a new voice. The new voice will be presented differently. Everybody has a different personality. You have a personality. I have a personality. Everybody's different. Dan has a far different approach, I think, as a guy watching him out from the outside over the years. He'll be more glib for the media and the fans, and that will be welcomed. He might be that way at the beginning with the players, which they'll say, wow, this is a little bit different, because he's a little bit more not as methodical and fundamental as Dave is as a coach. But then we're going to get into what it really is. And then a month into the season, we're going to know, okay, are the challenges still there? The voice sounds good. The honeymoon might be over, or the honeymoon might be great, right? I think the key for Dan Bylsma is this. There's been a light that's been reignited in his career. I think Pittsburgh was great right away. Then they kind of never met the bar after the Stanley Cup. Then he went to Buffalo, and it wasn't very good. Then he went to Detroit as an associate head guy there, and it wasn't very good for him, maybe. And then he didn't know if he really wanted to be a head coach or not again. And Ron gave him a chance, and it looks like there's a renaissance. It looks like there's a rebirth with him. Mm-hmm. So I'm anxious to get to him and talk to him about how he has changed, because I'll tell you what, when I look back, and I'm old enough to remember because I was there, unfortunately, in 2009 when he took over the Penguins. I covered him a great deal. And I remember, he was ahead of the curve. Like, he was ahead of some of this north and south, move the puck quickly, play fast, things that we hear about today. He was all about that then. But also, I think he's changed a little bit, and I want to know what that is. And also, I think he has a book knowledge for the younger guys. And some of these guys, there's 2 or 3 of them that are going to be infused in this lineup this season. Because now, as we approach the 4th year, we're getting away from the expansion roster, certainly the original list. There's some holdovers, but now the drafting and developing that Ron talks about, it's go time for some of these players. That'll be interesting to watch.
If I could reach through the screen, I'd give you a hug, because good on you for mentioning Dave Hakstol. I wrote a story listing all the great quotes praising him. And this was a year ago when he was a Jack Adams finalist and won a new extension. And I don't think he suddenly got stupid.
He didn't.
I don't think any of the other coaches forgot how to coach. I
No.
mean, like 5 of the last 6 Jack Adams nominees aren't with their team anymore. So, and I look at Paul Maurice, who won the Stanley Cup. I think he's on his 5th coaching job.
Yeah.
Peter Laviolette with the
Yeah.
Rangers, who won the President's Trophy. I think he's on his 6th coaching
Yeah.
job. So I don't think the fault was primarily with Dave Hakstol, just that it's a fact of life that voices tend to get tuned out after a certain amount of time, no matter what you're saying.
That's kind of the nature of the profession at this level. And it's what all coaches know. And I remember in my previous life in Carolina, when Rod Brindamore took over, he had been an assistant coach for 7 years, iconic playing figure here, as you know. But when he took the job, one of the first things he said to me, because he reached out to a few people around the team, what do you think? I told him what I thought. And then he said, this is never going to end well for me. That's just the way coaching is. It never ends well. Scotty Bowman didn't go out. He did go out as a champion, but the years that, for those of us that can remember that he went from Montreal and they ended up in Buffalo, all of a sudden he couldn't coach, And so coaches are defined by primarily goaltending. If you have great goaltending, you'll be a great coach. Number 2, it's the players. But then people say, well, why do we have a coach? Well, you have a coach because someone has to organize the players. And I think Dave did a very good job at that. And I think what happened in the 3rd season was a real hard schedule to start the year. As I always look at 1 month. When I look at a season, Glenn, I just look at the first month of the year and how it looks. And I looked at that and I told a few people around the team, you know what, if we're 500, we're going to be in the playoffs and this team's going to be legitimate. And to the public, a 500 record the first month based on the 2 rounds of the playoffs would be like, what's happening here? But there was a lot of road games, a lot of quality opponents. You played Carolina twice, Colorado. You got all that. That was last year. And then they started chasing their tail. Yeah. And then it never, it's an endless thing once that happens. This year, I think the schedule in October is much more favorable. I think the roster's better. But I think the guys who are here know what's expected in terms of Kraken hockey and how they want to play. And that was Dave's job. Dave knew when he took the job, he was a guy that was going to lay the foundation. He necessarily wasn't going to see this, all the way through. It'd be nice if he did. But even in Vegas, look what's happened in Vegas. They're on the 3rd coach.
Gerard Gallant, what have you done for me lately?
Correct. So, I mean, he's a perfect example, right, of a guy who took an expansion roster in the first year to the Stanley Cup final. And then they had to bring in Pete DeBoer, and then they had to bring in Butch Cassidy. So, that's coaching in the National Hockey League.